Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for joining the Tyromper No Limit Podcast. This is episode number 63. And boys and girls, we got a treat for you today. This is a man. Hold your breath here, ladies and gentlemen. That is a 10-time Ironman. He's a father of two with the third one on the way. Congratulations, brother. He is a practicing doctor of physical therapy. This is a man that with his brother Brett are positive forces on social media and in real life, getting men to kill that dad bod, lead from the front, and live intentional lives. This is a man that I believe loves family walks as much as I do and is passionate about them. This is my brother here, Chris. Thanks for joining the pod, brother. Thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
Tyler, man, it's a pleasure. I was a social media exile for a long time, and you were one of the first guys that kind of got me back on the Twitter world, and just full circle today. It feels like just being able to have this conversation with you. So I'm happy to be here, and so much of what you have done over the last year and a half has definitely pushed me to where I am today. So I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Man, that humbles me a lot, man. Yeah, I think probably back 5-6 years ago, I hated social media too. I was following Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I don't even know who these people are anymore. I don't know who's popular in the political realm, but I'd get on there, I'd fight all day, I'd argue with people, and then I kind of realized a few years ago, hey, there's a better way. Let's kind of change the way we go about this. Now I feel like you're such a huge positive force for good too, man. You're putting out massive threads and really helping people all the time with your knowledge and expertise. So maybe anybody, I would assume a lot of people that follow me probably follow you, but maybe give us a rundown or a quick few-minute intro, who you are, what you're about, my man.
Sure. Yeah. I'll try to keep this as concise as I can, but grew up in, the rural Midwest, and I have my brother Brett, which you mentioned earlier, but there's actually four of us total. So very, competition driven family. Sports were a huge part of who we were. Really, I would say all the way through college was basically my primary focus. And kind of even, I would always say the education piece was a bit of an afterthought, and we can definitely talk about that too a bit, but I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do. Just always felt like I was sort of following what I was being told, or what the path that, we're being led as individuals in society. College is something you have to do. And so ended up, jumping into healthcare and physical therapy, and still was never really all that 100% passionate about it, just because I felt like there was always a lot of red tape in the way. What some of it was, documentation related, things along those lines. And I always used sports, and then transitioned into the Ironman side of things, used that for sort of my outlet for a number of years. About probably 6 or 7 years, I was pretty heavily into it, and then got married and realized my focus needed to shift to, being more present as a father, or excuse me, as a husband, and then eventually as a father. So I left that behind, and it left a huge gaping hole for me. Still had a lot of student debt, a lot of things that I mentioned, just not being 100% confident in what healthcare was and what I was doing with it, so to speak. And just left this huge hole for me for a few years, and became a lot less present with family. And, just started to really, for me, COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me some time to actually reflect on what I wanted my life to look like. And from there, was able to have some real conversations with my brother Brett. And, for the longest time, the two of us sort of felt like we were crazy, because we just had some very different opinions on things, and the values that we were seeing in the world were not things that we necessarily agreed with. And so we just decided, I would say about a year ago, as I mentioned, started following guys like you and Zach Hummel, and just some other, powerhouses that just had some different opinions and a very positive outlook on the world. And from there, we just started having conversations with guys, and built our tribe. And since that time, almost got fired in January because of some vaccine stuff. And then from there, I did actually lose my job in June. Was a bit outspoken, and some other things that kind of played in there as well. And I decided to kind of go all in from there. Since June, I've been, putting out content on a consistent basis, having as many conversations with people as possible, and realize that, like, I'm so full of energy, being able to just help people who really want to be helped, and can have, real conversations about nutrition, which I couldn't really do as a physical therapist, as crazy as that sounds. There's so many scope of practice issues and things like that interfere. And I felt like, with my exercise physiology background, my Ironman background, there's a lot of things that I can bring to the table outside of PT. And so now I get to take a more holistic approach to, treating clients and helping clients to build lifestyles that hopefully get them out of the sick care system, as I like to call it. And just building men. I think we just need more and more positive forces out there to show guys that there is a different way than just running in the rat race day after day. And that provider hat, which I think is something is important for us as dads to do and fathers to do, but we have to be a lot more of a Swiss Army knife than just that. So I'll stop there. And, there's a lot to unpack. But...
Yeah, tons to unpack. And I appreciate that. I kind of want to start with, I think it's pretty common where you were right before COVID, right? Like maybe you're married, you're doing this job, you kind of don't feel super fulfilled in it. But I think a lot of guys get stuck there, right? And they say, well, I've got the mortgage, I got the student debt, I got the car payment, we got the lifestyle creep. And I'm trapped. I don't really know what to do. And how you said kind of COVID became almost a blessing for you to be able to pause. Our family was the same way, man. We really slowed down during that point. And me and my wife we outlined a vision for what we wanted our life to look like. And we're like, it's not just making money and into paying bills till we die, like that doesn't make sense. And so when you kind of had that light bulb moment, and then you started kind of, let's pair that with maybe you didn't see eye to eye in the sick care system, the healthcare system. And I've talked to other people who have that same view. What did that start to look like as you became more outspoken? Did you get a little more outspoken with your patients as you're kind of crafting this vision of, hey, maybe the world's not what they tell me it is? And kind of what were some light bulb moments for you along there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it was a process. I wish I could say it was this big epiphany, but more than anything, it was just continuing to have, as I mentioned, conversations with other people, because I think I had reached a point where, I had accomplished a lot with, getting my doctorate, going through Ironman, all these things, but I had been torn down in that system for a number of years that my self-belief was destroyed. Like I did not feel like I was capable of doing anything else. And so a lot of it was just getting back to the basics, things that you talk about a lot with getting outside, walking, being able to have time to reflect. I said the rat race earlier, but it's so true. There's just no time for us to be able to decompress and focus on ourselves and listening to our own thoughts. And then from there, we're just so easily, impressionable with what all of society thinks or says. And so then all of a sudden that becomes our belief structure. And so I just had to really just take time for me. And I had even gotten away from the health and fitness side for a while. Like I wasn't taking care of myself like I had been for my entire life. There was a 3 or 4 year stretch where it was not where it needed to be. And so I was like, okay, that has to be my number one. If I can fix my nutrition, if I can pour into my exercise schedule, take time for myself. And I saw the fruits of that pretty quickly. And that just started sparking a bit more, self-belief. And then, you have the confidence to start having some more of those conversations, even if they are difficult conversations with patients and coworkers and, a couple of, administrators with my job and things like that. So it just reached a point where I knew that back in January, when I did almost lose my job and was able to get the religious exemption side of things, I was done. Like I was like, nobody's ever going to tell me that this is how I have to provide for my family. Like I need to find balance. And so it just kind of continued to build from there. And, being in a situation where you don't have a lot of extra skills outside of healthcare, I realized I needed to understand marketing. I need to understand sales. I need to understand social media and writing and all these different things. And so I just tried to spend some time doing each of those things and leaning into some level of discomfort and using that as my compass, so to speak.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. There's so many points there too. I think, we grow up and most of being a successful adult in my mind is unlearning all the crap that they program into us for like 22 years, right? I mean, at this point, we've seen hundreds of thousands of commercials that basically sell you all these things, these lies that, well, when you get to this status of car, you'll be happy. When you get to this status of that, you'll be happy, right? And I think a lot of times what you said, man, I feel this in my soul where I left myself too. You know, I got married, had a daughter. I was always kind of physically active until then. And then I was just became a martyr, right? Well, I don't have time. I've got the job 45, 50 hours a week. I got the dad thing. And you become this like, I'm going to pour everything into everybody else. And you're just completely empty all the time. And you're trying to pour from an empty bucket. And I see so many men that get to that point. And unless they do something, I think that's why it's so important what you're doing now is to tell these men there's a better way. You got to fill your own cup. You got to take control of your life. Because if you're not in control of it and very intentional, outside forces aren't going to have the best interest for you. Let's be honest. Your boss doesn't really care if you're filled up and feeling great. He just cares that you produce, you know? And so there's so many good points on that. What I do want to hit real quick, man, is, and if you don't mind, what were some of the conversations? And I know kind of the vaccine stuff, right? And that's my body, my choice didn't apply during this time, right? But what were some other things kind of in healthcare that kind of really made you put up walls and say, man, I'm not able to fully help sort of how you are now, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is happening in all fields right now, but especially in physical therapy, you know, Medicare is broke. They're virtually insolvent, and they're just borrowing from, you know, one year after another as far as where they're finding their funds. And so their primary objective is to save as much money as possible. So they're creating more red tape, they're creating more documentation, and that's definitely leading to part of the burnout. But then you're also seeing, you know, sicker and sicker patients, more documentation, and expected to see more patients. And so, you know, the only way for companies and hospitals, they call themselves not for profit, but the reality is, you know, someone's making a bunch of money, and it's just the way it's being reported is very different. So, but, you know, when it comes to, you know, healthcare in general, it's all about how many patients you can see. And so you're seeing this with MDs as well. Is like we've had a bunch of primary care doctors in our area just leave because the only choice they have is to work for one large system or leave, because there's no other way for them to practice because they've bought up everything else. So for me specifically, I think the turning point was when I was being told, you know, you've had a stroke, there's a stroke patient you're supposed to be working with here. And, you know, they're 2 weeks out. They just came home. They can't walk. They can barely get out of the chair. And you get one visit a week. And then we want you to cut down, once you get through your first 30 days, we want you to cut down to every other week. And so, you know, well, long story short, our stuff is within, I was working in home health. So I was able to, at least at that point, I was working one-on-one, which was great because most clinics, you go into an outpatient, you're 2 to 3 patients per physical therapist in most cases, because the reimbursement's even lower in the clinic setting than it is pretty much any place else. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in the home health situation, obviously I can only be in one place at one time, but I'm not making any progress with somebody I'm seeing once a week. I mean, this stroke, I mean, any stroke patient or any patient for that matter, you know, if you're only in there, you're really just kicking the can down the road. Maybe you're keeping them at their current status, but you're putting so much burden on the patient and on those caregivers that you're not going to make progress. And you know, I firmly believe that most companies are still making a decent amount of money doing extra visits, but, you know, insurance wants to get theirs. The Medicare is trying to cut back money. And then you also have the side of it from the companies. I was working for a private company, so it wasn't necessarily not for profit, but I think that was the biggest thing is I just realized there's nothing about this that has anything to do with health anymore. And, you know, you're working with patients who are, they end up with one symptom, they start with one medication, and all of a sudden that triggers 3 side effects. So they're put on 3 more medications. And it's just it's a reactive medicine world as opposed to a preventative care world. And I think that's a very slippery slope. And as the system continues to get more and more overrun with, as I mentioned, sicker patients, more documentation, and what I believe to be a likely major shortage in healthcare workers, just because it's not going to be as desirable of a field. You know, you're going to have, I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of almost a generational side to doctors where like grandpa was a doctor. Now, you know, the father was a doctor, their kids are like, you see that a lot. And I think you're going to see less and less of that because their parents and grandparents have seen the transition that's gone on. And you're just, you know, to go into, you know, 6 figures or in some cases multiple 6 figures in debt for that, to then be, you know, having to be on call and working crazy hours and working with sicker patients with more and more demands and feeling like you're not really helping people, that's a very empty place as far as I'm concerned. And I don't see it as something that people are going to really push themselves into when there's so many other opportunities that this world now has that you can help a lot more people and really have more autonomy with what you do throughout the day.
Yeah, that's so huge, man. That holistic approach to helping people. That's the thing that I find so frustrating. And dude, I'm the most optimistic person. And so I remember when COVID hit, I was like, dude, telling my wife every day, this is going to be amazing. We're going to see a shift in our culture. Like companies are going to mandate walks for people now, or strongly suggest, or give you bonuses if you're healthy. Or like, we're going to see a massive shift in people taking personal responsibility and understanding, hey, if I have 4 comorbidities here, when I get that, I'm 99% more likely to die. If I'm healthy and I get this thing, I'm 99.9% to be fine, right? All these things were coming out, and we were seeing that if you're just healthy, you have a great shot at being fine, right? And I think you saw 2 camps, people that were like, look, I'm healthy, I don't need this thing. And then people that were so afraid, right? Like, give me 12 of these things because I just want to be safe, And like, we had this big divide, and it really almost, I wouldn't say broke me, but I remember getting really down about it for a couple of weeks and then thinking about the healthcare system and how it isn't, if I was head of that messaging, why isn't everything around some personal responsibility getting you off meds? But what you alluded to is they come in with one thing, they start getting on meds. Well, now you got a customer, right? And if you give them those meds and there's 3 side effects, now we can give them 3 more meds, and look who's getting paid along that way. And it seems to me, I mean, it sounds conspiracy theory or whatever, but like, you need patients, you need customers, right? And so there's not a lot of interest in fixing people or promoting healthy lifestyle or promoting diet or promoting this holistic approach, because then you don't have customers. Like, I'm a terrible, I haven't been, I go for a yearly physical and that's it. I haven't really been in 10 years, right? Because I'm a healthy guy. I'm not a good customer for them. And so when you kind of look at it that way, do you feel like that's what's going on? Is there's kind of like an underlying, well, we need customers, right? We don't really want to fix them. We kind of just want to put Band-Aids over stuff.
Yeah. And, I don't want to sit here and say that I don't believe that doctors or, pharmacists on the healthcare worker side, I think those people genuinely want to do the best, but I don't think they're equipped in a way to do so. The nutritional education, the overall exercise education of those practitioners is extremely low. They're not given that information, but, they're treated. And I've had a couple of conversations with people who are either in med school or practicing it to this point, as a primary care doctor. And they basically say, we're told how to address disease instead of how to prevent it altogether. And then they like to point the finger and say, well, that's why we have nutritionists. And it's like, how many people in their lives have actually had a conversation with a nutritionist? Like, I feel like it's probably 1 or 2% who've actually
if you're not on Fit Twitter, you haven't.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things that we make it, but then from the standpoint, going back to what I was talking about earlier, you get, I think it's on average, it's like 6 or 7 minutes of face-to-face conversation with your doctor. By the time they analyze your chart, look back on what you're doing, they're thinking about the next person in the next room over by the time they get into your room. And, any extra question or anything that they have to answer, it just slows them down for their day and makes more stress, and it just kind of builds on them. And so it's hard to blame them, because that's the system that we're in right now. Is it's just, it's a puppy mill, so to speak, of patients. And there isn't any money in preventative care. That's the bottom line. There's no way to keep that Netflix subscription model that they like to create on. And so, yeah, I try to keep a positive mindset. It's very easy, I think, to get cynical being around, healthcare and seeing some of these things play out. But what I do firmly believe is that there is going to be a massive shift, because you're going to see people lose. I mean, they're losing confidence in many things right now, whether that's media, healthcare, education. The confidence in these establishments are continuing to deteriorate on a daily basis. So people are looking for alternatives. And I think that's why, messages like what you and I are doing, tend to resonate, because it does show a different perspective. And it's like, if I've been doing the same thing over and over for the last 20 years and it's not working, maybe I can just try something else. And generally the stuff that we're talking about is extremely low risk, and it's sort of try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, move on to something else and see what else works for you. And it's going to look different for everybody, but I think that's what preventative health really is finding things you enjoy doing that make you feel good. And there's 1,000 different ways to accomplish that promote a healthy lifestyle.
That's right, man. I think it can be so intimidating for new people coming in, and they think, well, my doctor just says to take these pills, so I take these pills, right? They must know what they're talking about. And I agree with you. I think the doctors are in an impossible spot. The pharmacists are in an impossible spot. And I've talked to a couple who say, dude, at the beginning of the day, I got a list of 42 patients I have to hit, and I only have so much time. So I literally have 4 to 5 minutes a patient. Like, I can't, if I want to even get a bite to eat that day, I can't take 6 minutes a patient. It has to be 4 to 5 minutes, so they aren't like in an impossible spot. But yeah, I think, I can think back to so many clients I've worked with over the last few years, and some of the biggest wins have been guys come to me. I can think of one in particular, Ryan, shout out to him if he watches this, but he was on meds for decades, right? And the same thing, just kind of, all he literally did, man, was start to take an hour a day walk, journal for about 4 or 5 minutes a day, and tweak a few things in his diet. And within 6 months, he was off every medication and feeling so happy and so alive. He'd lost 25 pounds. Never touched a weight, we're not even talking hard stuff, right? But it's like nobody had ever had that conversation with him before, to just think about like getting some movement in every day, and what that will do for you, and it's cool. I think where we are at, you have a background of Ironman, and like this gives you a lot of authority, but you can still meet people where they are, right? And say, hey, man, even if you've never moved, let's find things that you love. It's not a one size fits all. Let's find things that you love and you're passionate about, and we can get you moving and healthy. Can you kind of talk a little bit about maybe your coaching, what that looks like, the average person that might come to you or seek help from you?
Sure, absolutely. Hey, Ty, I forgot my computer's unplugged. It's about to die on me. Give me just 1 second.
Oh, you got it, man. No worries.
Yeah. Kind of going back to what you were saying, as far as Ironman goes, it's something that, it really did shape who I am as an individual. I got into it pretty naive with 22-year-old coming off of a college track season, and buddy of mine was like, let's get bikes. And I'm like, sure, why not? And so then I had a little gap, thankfully, between undergrad and grad school. So we had like 7 months, and he had a friend who had just signed up for Ironman Louisville. And long story short, he went ahead and convinced us to sign up. So we trained our tails off all summer, went into Ironman Louisville, was very fortunate, again, naive, probably helped me more than anything else. I didn't really overthink it, just kind of went out there and did my thing, and was fortunate to be able to get out to Kona and race out at the World Championships. And so then I was hooked. I was like,
awesome, man.
I was like, if so that's kind of what continued to kind of shape my next few years. But, it just built this kind of limitless mindset of, if I can convince my mind that this is possible, then I can move forward. And I think that's why Ironman in general is very daunting for people to even consider, because they just can't wrap their head around the distance. And it's something that, once you commit to it and you put the time and energy into it, like I firmly believe, and I've said this before, that you give me 12 months and I can get you to the finish line. As long as you're not coming in, 100 pounds overweight, that situation, because then that's almost like a 2-tier thing. Like, let's get you healthy first and then, move forward from there. But I think for the average person, I think it can be done. And it just takes stacking those consistent wins to be able to show yourself, prove to yourself that anything is possible. And, getting into some of those long rides, those long runs, you just learn so much about yourself. And that's why I love it, because there's nothing like that kind of isolation, that tranquility of whether it's, riding in the countryside or being out on that long run, and, nobody's there to save you in those moments. You just have to be able to keep going, and, you overcome that resistance. And from there, there's so many ways that I think it carries over into life, and that, whether it's, struggles with your marriage, or having those difficult conversations, even being able to, look at business wise that, you're going to take punches at times, and just being able to continue to overcome and understand that as long as you keep going, you're going to be successful and be able to get to that finish line. So I'll just pause there, but it's something that I'm not necessarily trying to get people to do, 10 of them, but I think it's a process that that is something that everybody, as far as endurance sports, could benefit from. And, even taking, and now I'm actually trying to do more strength training, trying to find that balance in my life. But, even strength athletes, I think there's a lot to be said for being able to get into those long distance events to just build that mindset.
Yeah, you're seeing that a lot more now. You see guys like Zach Hommel, Ryan Dreyer, a lot of these guys now from Twitter that are coming over to that Ironman world. And I think what you said about your mind is everything. And the first thing I thought is like, how cool for you, Chris, because, okay, you're in this job, you got a PhD for, it's probably what, when you take that job, you think, well, this is what I'm going to do till I'm 60, right? But now you have this self-belief, hey, I'm not really fulfilled here. I just want to go start my own coaching business and my own, I just want to partner. I mean, most people would look at that and say, that's foolish. You can't do that, right? But I feel like you probably built that kind of mindset that said, well, I see other people doing it. That means I can do it, right? There's a gap in knowledge, but I can bridge that gap. And maybe there's a gap in writing skill, but I can bridge that gap with, like you said, consistent wins day after day. And I'm sure that same mindset comes from conquering those hard challenges through an Ironman, through pushing your limits, through telling yourself, hey man, you know what? I don't feel like running today, but I'm going to run. I don't feel like biking today. I'm going to ride. I don't feel like writing today. I'm going to write, And I think that's probably why you're so successful in everything you've done. Would you attribute a lot of the success to that?
Yeah, I haven't really thought a whole lot about, whether Ironman has played a part, but I do think that it, when it comes to what you said earlier of, you went to school for 7 years to do something and most people would tell you you're crazy. And in fact, I've had basically zero conversations with people I either used to work with or were connected to me because of, physical therapy. And it's been intentional just because I know the resistance I'm going to get back because it's not going to make sense to them, what I'm trying to accomplish. But I just don't care. And I don't really want that in my life right now. And there'll be a time when I can go back and have those conversations because, I'll feel like I don't want to say proven myself, so to speak, but I'm in a position where I can handle some of that negative energy. But right now, I just don't feel like I really need that on a daily basis while I'm still trying to go through that building process, so to speak. So yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of what I learned over those years racing that has really helped me. And I think it has helped me also when it comes to just refining myself, if that makes any sense. There was that period where I think I did lose myself and I lost that belief. And I was able to, once I got back into the fitness side of things and started doing all the things you just mentioned with writing and networking and all these different things that I'm doing on a daily basis now, that I think I could lean back on those wins and overcoming that resistance and realize that there's nothing here that I can't do. It's going to take some time and a lot of energy and consistency, but it's all possible for sure.
I love that, man. Can I ask a question? Because I wondered, did you always kind of feel a little different than maybe your colleagues? Or because I remember I was a professional poker player for 10 years, man, and I was my own boss and then married, kids. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be flying to Vegas. At the time we lived in the Midwest. I don't want to be leaving my family for months at a time. So I need to pick a new career. I went back to school, like worked at a bank, ended up managing the largest bank. But I always felt like with most of my colleagues there, like I just didn't fit in, man. Like there's something about me that just, I would question. They would tell us these things, these policies, and I'd be like, but why? It doesn't make sense. And everybody else would just follow it blindly. And it didn't make sense to me, and then I was like the guy doing like push-ups in the break room while everybody else is eating the snacks, and like, I never felt like I really fit in there. Did you kind of feel like that too?
Yeah. I mean, I think in different ways, part of it is probably, I just have like a little bit of consistent difficulty with authority. I would say that's kind of always been me. Yeah. Going back through school, I didn't like to just sit in my chair and sit there, be quiet, shut up, do your homework. Like I always found ways to kind of get around doing the thing everybody else did. And, even when it came to, college, I didn't get it. Like I can't say school was ever that difficult, but I think if I would have been given multiple opportunities in high school, I probably wouldn't have gone to college altogether. I probably would have done something else, but very small Midwestern school. I loved where I grew up, but you're pretty isolated, you don't really know what you don't know. So when everyone's parents and every teacher and administrator that you ever talk to says like, yeah, you get good grades, you should go to college. Here's some places you should apply, like you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that sounds good.
You're
Because
18, right?
you're
Sign
very
here. It's only
impressionable.
$200,000 for the rest of your life. Just sign here,
Yeah.
man. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. And when they were like, yeah, you can run track and play basketball, I was like, okay, I can, it wasn't a big school. It was a small Division III school, but it was something that was way more important to me, being able to continue those areas than it was the school side of it. But yeah, I mean, especially when I got to PT school, everybody there was so just enthusiastic about what they were doing. And I was like, this is crazy. Like I like the human body. I like learning about it, but I don't want to hang out with you guys because all you want to do is talk about school and how excited you are. Like, I don't care. As soon as I leave, I want to go do something fun. And, it's just, there was this huge disconnect. And then I would say it got significantly worse when I got to where I am now. And, you look at where I live is a very big college driven area. And, people are more interested in football recruiting than they are, just taking care of their families and having hard conversations. And it's like, I don't want to drink beer and talk about college football all day. I don't care. Like there was a time in my life where I watched a ton of sports and I enjoyed those things. And I still do from an entertainment perspective, but it's in its, proper bucket now, so to speak. And I can't have these small talk conversations. I never cared for them, going way back when. I'd always rather talk about bigger things and sometimes, question the narrative on things. And I think that's what really kind of sparked this all together was, I started going down some rabbit holes with education and understanding things like the Federal Reserve and all these different areas. And it was like,
Scams,
wow.
bro. Let's just call them what they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's something that like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so to just go back and meander through life, I just couldn't do it. So that's really, I think was a big driving force behind it is I can't go back to this ever again. And I need to move forward and do something else.
That's huge, man. What you said, once you see it, you can't unsee. I felt like that with the news, with education, with mainstream media, with all a lot of these political stuff, a lot of these things, once you see what they are, man, I feel like if COVID didn't highlight that for you, I feel like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know what else will, right? Like, I mean, I was called the cops on for going to work out outside by myself, not around anybody else, but I literally got the cops called on me multiple times, people videotaping me, I mean, it's like, if you can't understand what's going on there, I feel like I can't help you at this point. But I love what you said of, like sports has its bucket. And that's a good topic to get into, I think, for men and for fatherhood. And we kind of talk about like leading from the front, right? And I can't tell you how many guys will contact me and say, my wife doesn't get me this and that, and they'll name all their stuff about their wife, right? And then we'll really dig into it. And I'm like, bro, you drink beer 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, and watch sports and talk to your buddies. What's your wife's love language? Do you even know? You've been married 13 years. When's the last time you took her on a date? 9 years ago? Like, what are you thinking? But men have this like priorities of, well, if I'm making money, I'm doing enough. If I'm providing, I'm good, right? And I had that mindset for the first few years of our marriage, and it didn't go well. And I think once you kind of see that, hey, man, there's a deeper level and a role that you need to play there that's a whole lot different. You need to lead them to health. You need to lead them to these other things, right? Can you kind of elaborate on that and talk about kind of maybe how you see that role as a father and a husband and a leader in your life?
Yeah, and I'll be completely honest, like my background in terms of communication was not great. I love my parents but when it comes to communication, I had to figure that out myself. It wasn't a great example, if I'm being completely honest. And so that was a struggle. Like, you mentioned love languages, understanding your spouse's love language. Like that wasn't something that came natural to me. And I would even say to this point, like it's still, it's a work in progress when it comes to understanding your spouse. And, we change and we both adapt. And I think it's a continuing, you can't expect that the person you married is the person that you're going to continue to move forward in life with. I think you've got to understand that, you bring kids into things and, just different challenges. We all go through experiences and that shapes who we are. So I think just continuing to take that time is really important. I love what you do all the time about, we love our kids so much that we leave them with a babysitter every week. Like, I mean, that's huge. Yeah. But I think you're right. I mean, there's not being able to have that one-on-one time where you're just unplugged from all the other chaoses of the rat race. I think that's huge. So, I mean, I think that's part of it. And then, sports specifically, in this world, we kind of experience sports in so many different ways. Like I have I don't know if you know Jordan Goldstein. Him and I have had a couple of really good
I just had him on the podcast yesterday. I love that guy so much,
great.
man. Yeah, he's awesome.
But I just love, some of the things that he talks about as far as, are the purpose of our bodies and things along those lines where, we kind of lose our purpose when we come out of high school sports or college sports or whatever it is. And so I think competition, like continuing to compete, is such a big deal, even if it's just competing with yourself of, I'm going to go do this local 5K. I haven't run in 5 years, but I'm going to go sign up for it. Or, I'm going to do, I know you've been doing some Murph stuff. And it's like, there's so many ways that we can create competition into our lives. And then showing that to our children is so huge. We just live in such a comfortable society, and being able to show them that it's okay to embrace discomfort, and it gives us that kind of honest feedback of, for ourselves and for then for our kids too, to be able to go be vulnerable and that's okay. And I don't know, I would say those are the two biggest things that stand out to me, is just continuing to show them understanding that we're always going to make mistakes, we're not perfect. And I think with I have a little girl who's 5 and our little boy just turned 2, and it's like, there's so much there that I'm so thankful now that as I'm still building this, that I can be there for, my wife and I sitting down with them at lunch, and it's a little chaotic, but just that like time, just building in that time. I don't think that can be really overstated. And just understanding that we don't need to have all of our purpose tied to that bank account. And in a lot of ways, you could argue, and I guess we've kind of experienced that over the last few months, is, when I lost my job back in June, I had poured a ton of time and energy into, financial gain, and kind of chased that for a long time, and still never felt, I always had that like stress, that overwhelming like stress of, is this enough? Is this going to work? And now is probably the time of my life over the past few months where I should have been more stressful about it. And I mean, I know that, God has put that like very calming perspective on me, as far as just, I've got this, and like, it may not be perfect, and you're going to maybe take some punches along the way, but it's kind of like that whole transition has really, I guess, shaped me from a financial side of like what money really is. And that, the more energy you pour into it, the more stress you end up getting because of it. So it's like, as I've kind of let it play out, it's just kind of taking care of itself. It's hard. It's really hard to describe. And that's why I just feel like it's much bigger than me.
I feel like a couple of things there is cool. What you said is like, when you're kind of walking with the Spirit and the Holy Spirit and trying to listen and do God's will for your life. And then when you took a big leap of faith, is what it was too, right? To say, hey, I'm going to leave this safe thing and go do what I maybe feel like I'm called to do. There is a peace that comes with that, man. And then when you switch your mindset around to, what is money really? It's not even real. It's just, it buys freedom. That's what me and my wife say. It doesn't really buy us stuff. It buys us time, right? And that's what we want more than anything, is time with our kids, and time to make those little memories and be there for those things. I mean, that, to me, I feel like the richest guy in the world, and that my bank account is not the richest guy in the world, but I feel like I have that time, even the time to get to hop on a call with you, Chris, and get to know you better and learn from your perspective. And to me, that makes me rich, like it, I don't know. I had recently had a call, this was 4 or 5 months ago, with a client who was a billionaire off Twitter and had been following me for a couple of years. And he messaged me and he said, dude, I'm worth over $1 billion, but I'm literally the most stressed out, ungrateful, unhappy guy you'll ever meet. And I remember just talking to this guy, man, for a while. And, he told me, hey, I got 5 homes, every toy you could ever imagine. My kids are taken care of. There's no real reason for me to not be happy, but I just can't be happy, And it was such as we worked through some stuff, it was such an eye-opening thing to me that like, everything society tells you will make you happy and to chase is fleeting. And it might make you temporarily a little happy, but it doesn't make you joyful. And joy comes from that inside, man, of waking up and being able to like impact somebody else's day, and to be with your kids, and to have an on-fire marriage, and to be feel like you're in communion with God's will for your life. Those are that deep down joy that I feel like, a lot of the world is just missing, because again, they chase the wrong stuff.
Totally, man.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really eye-opening to me, man.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty powerful. It's like you can't create a better example than what you just mentioned right there in terms of that that whole abundance mindset of being able to kind of walk away from, not necessarily walk away, but having those things in perspective and understanding that there's no amount of money, resources that's going to put you in a position that's going to just create joy naturally. You've got to be able to in some ways choose that daily, choose that positive mindset, choose that gratitude, and just allow that to overwhelm everything else. I think it takes, I mean, you've shown, like, I know you've been journaling consistently for years now. It's like you do have to build that into your life. It's not going to come completely on its own. It is something that we've got to create that discipline into our lives to be able to, kind of foster it, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like when you started training for that first Ironman, right? You didn't just go out and do the 13-hour race. Like, you probably started with, an hour workout, hour and a half. Now we're adding an hour of biking and a half hour running. And it just slowly but surely you start to train your muscles, train your body to realize they can do that. I feel like journaling is the same thing, man. That the first month I journaled my gratitude, it didn't really have maybe a tiny effect, but the compounding effect of 5 years later, almost, of just every day taking a few moments to say what I'm grateful for and thank God for those things. It's really changed my whole mind, right? When you look at it, and it's the same for you, I'm sure, of training consistently over that time. Now you can go out and do Ironmans because of all that groundwork you've laid before. And so I feel like anything in life that you really decide you want to go for, you have the power to do it if you just build in that discipline and those habits to do it every day. There's really no limits to what you can accomplish if you're disciplined and willing to put in the work, make the sacrifices to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things that I think that first step is just insurmountable for a lot of people. They just need they need an example in some cases of, like, how do I break free from this? And whether that's because they need some accountability or additional structure built into their lives, or just like that belief side of things again. They just don't believe they can do it, and they need to kind of reframe that mindset to be able to go ahead and then build gratitude or set crazy fitness goals or whatever it is. It's just being able to find that spark. And for me, I think that goes back to tribe, so to speak, and just having other people around you that are pulling you forward. You obviously have to do your part, and nobody's going to want to hang around, especially when you have a bunch of positive people are not going to want to hang out with a very negative person. But just that curiosity, and I say this a lot too, is just like reaching out to people. People that you admire. What I was very surprised by is, with a very, very small account last year, when we reached out to people, everybody said yes. I mean, there was maybe one or two that just didn't respond, but that was like, oh, okay, like there's something to this here. Like, people in this space in particular are, for the most part, very willing to have conversations and help, either connect one-on-one or find other people that you can connect with to be able to continue to help foster that, so to speak, again. And because I just think in general, men are just very isolated, and that isolation is really what's destroying us. So being able to just find those handful of positive people that you can lean on and overcome life with when it kind of punches you back.
I think that's everything, man. I think that's so wise of you even to say, hey, during this season of life, I won't even go kind of back to talking to maybe some of those people in healthcare who might try and bring me back down or call me foolish for this. It's really, man, we're so intentional about it with our kids. I have a 7-year-old, and the amount of times I've probably said, yeah, who you hang out with, like, as parents, you say these things, but I feel like we almost kind of forget it in the adult world too, right? Like, who we're hanging around with consistently is going to shape us. And if I'm just talking to guys like you all the time who have this growth mindset, getting after it at the gym, working on their faith, their positivity, their habits, well, I don't want to be the one that gets pulled down, right? I don't want to be the guy that's like complaining to you all the time. So that's going to make me want to kind of level up too. And I think that's the power of Twitter, social media, kind of this time that we're living in that I'm so grateful for now is, dude, I can connect with people like you. I can connect with a guy like Zach Hommel. I can connect with Zuby. I can literally connect with some of these people that I really admire and look up to and learn from them. Hopefully they learn a little from me, and we can all grow together. And I think there's never been, I always say, like, 30 years ago, man, your community was who you work with and who your neighbors are. Like, you don't really have a choice, right? And I feel like you'd see a lot of men just kind of get isolated in that. Well, my coworkers are negative. I come home to a negative home environment. Everything's negative. I'm just going to drink beer and zone out. Like you probably just saw that, but now you have a choice. You can seek these people in these communities that for not a lot of money in most senses, most people just help you for free, to be honest, right? And like, I can't tell you the amount of times like I've reached out to somebody or somebody's reached out to me and just had a great conversation. And now you're kind of forming these groups and these tribes, so to speak, as you said too, that you guys are, and just these men that are coming together that normally would just have to take some of their problems and kind of internalize them, never really talk about. Now they can realize other guys struggle too with the same stuff. Hey, Chris has already overcome this thing. What can I learn from him to maybe get over this quicker? Hey, another guy in Chris's group has overcome this. What can I lean into him? Or, and once you connect that power of community, man, it's like limitless, and you can all grow together and you just build a bigger pie. And it's an amazing thing, man. It's something I never take for granted to be alive during this time. I feel like it's such a gift,
Yeah, and I think it seems very foreign to a lot of people because, you're talking to people across the country and, the whole idea of, I would honestly say like some of the best people and some of my best friends are people I met over the last year and a half on Twitter. Like that probably sounds really crazy to people, but it's the honest truth because we're like-minded and we're in a position where we're ready to take action on things. And, we just have it's just a different perspective. And I think the more people that can be sort of pulled into that, the better. I mean, I'm biased, but I know how it's changed my life. So it's like, why would I not want to affect as many people as possible with, that level of change and positivity, because I've seen how it's going to impact me, my wife, my kids, our, extended family, extended friends. It's just, it comes down to, you were talking earlier about, your negative wife, negative coworkers, all that kind of stuff, is we just have to make a choice to like stop numbing ourselves, and I think that when we stop numbing ourselves, it might be a significant challenge at first, but it is going to force us to like just deal with ourselves. The whole just rat race for 5 days, numb for 2, and then repeat all over again. It's like when we stop doing that and we can be honest with what really is going on in our lives, I think then it gives us an opportunity to make some change. But until we're willing to like kind of take a step back, then it's going to be tough, and it's going to just be rinse and repeat all over again.
And that's super powerful right there, man. And, I want to pause there for a moment and say, I do the demographics on YouTube. So outside of my wife and my mom, we probably got 97% of guys that listen to this. So, if you're a guy out there and maybe let's say you do feel stuck, right? You've been in this little rat race for a while. You feel like, man, I just can't get ahead. It's always 2 steps forward, 3 back. What would you tell a guy like that? Maybe working a job, he's not super passionate, but hey, he's got to pay the bills. And maybe he doesn't feel like he has time to pour into himself, or he can't find community, or all these excuses that guys will make. What would your best advice be for a guy like that?
Yeah, I think the first part is you have to create margin, first of all. So, you said, I don't have time. I don't believe that. I think we have priorities issues. We don't have time issues. And so, if it's something as simple as going to bed 30 minutes early, turning the game off at halftime and going to bed and getting up half an hour early instead of, there's something to be said for like starting your day on the right foot. So, you get up, you maybe work out, or personally, I don't even think it necessarily needs to be a workout. Go take a walk. Like, I think that walking is so huge, early mornings. I know we're kind of in a winter season here, but just whether it's walking, meditation, I like some of the Wim Hof stuff. I think that stuff's pretty cool. Pulling out a pen and paper, I think a pen and paper is just extremely powerful. We've kind of gotten into this, everything has to be on a computer, but there's something to be said for just putting that ink to paper. There's no question about it. And, you do that for a week. I mean, just commit to it for a week. Like, I'm going to get up 30 minutes early for an entire week and pick one of those things and just see what happens, because it just gives you that margin to then get some honest feedback on yourself that, again, early on, you may not necessarily like it. You may all of a sudden have to start dealing with some things that you've been putting off for a long time. But I think that's step one. And then from there, just start reaching out to guys. I mean, even if you feel like these people are 10 steps ahead of you, just start asking questions. That could be Twitter, that could be people at work that, are going to the gym consistently, asking them if you can tag along for a workout one day or something along those lines. Just trying to change your inputs, because the inputs you currently are using are not working. There's things that you got to be able to kind of dig through your day and look at the people you're hanging out with, the stuff you're watching, the things you're looking at or listening to, and just try to change those up, even if it's just a little bit, because I think it has a compounding effect in life where you make one change and you feel a little better because of it. And then from there, you're like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And that's really what happened to me. You look at, even on the nutrition side, there's so many things out there that you can try that kind of have very little risk, so to speak. Okay, like I've been eating cereal for breakfast. What if I just started eating eggs every day, or I started eating, Greek yogurt every morning? Like, just see how you feel, because if all of a sudden you have more energy when you come home from work, you're going to be less stressed with your kids, and that's going to have less stress with you and your wife. And it's just like all of those things just build on themselves. And so a lot there. I probably just threw out, 15 different ideas, but I think it's just like picking one thing, whether it's nutrition, time in the morning, and reaching out to people. Those would probably be the three biggest things that I would push.
Yeah, I think that everybody has the same 24 hours. And I used to joke, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to build a side business. I don't have time. Bro, I watch Game of Thrones all the way through 2 times. I watch 20 hours a week of sports. I literally said I didn't have time. I had a priority problem, not a time problem. And I love that, man. And also, win the morning, win the day. That's one of my mantras. And that's why I think all dads, and I'm not like I hate these people that are like, you have to do this. You have to do that. I'm not one of these guys, but I think every parent should wake up before their kids and have some time in the day where they fill their own bucket, whether that be journaling, reading, quiet time, a walk, the gym, whatever that is. Your kid should not be your alarm clock. You need to win that morning, win that day, get up with some energy so you can pour back into them. I think, I think that's a huge point, man. I had one question here from Twitter when I said I was gonna host you, and it said, what was the biggest struggle you saw in patients and maybe clients now with health that they need to overcome?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that self-belief again. It's just like understanding that you are capable of making change, and that when you take a step, like let's say, you're go strong for 4 or 5 days, and then you have a bad day, is making sure that, you don't miss twice, is don't let one bad meal, especially around the holidays here, and even just giving yourself that margin. It is like, if you can give yourself that opportunity to go enjoy your meal without getting down on yourself, knowing that tomorrow morning you're going to get back to it and hammer that same breakfast you've been hitting all week because it makes you feel good, makes you feel full. And, I think it's really true in all things, is we're really hard on ourselves because we lack confidence and we lack belief. So I've probably said that 20 times here on the podcast, but I think it's everything. It comes down to, it helps us build discipline. The discipline builds consistency, and it all kind of spirals from there. But if we don't believe in ourselves in the first place, there's no amount of motivation that's ever going to be able to overcome that. So I would say that's probably number one. And then from there, just like finding things you enjoy and keeping it as simple as possible. So, a lot of the stuff that's out there, and what my brother and I are doing is really just building lifestyles. It's not a diet plan. We're very upfront about that. Like, if you're here to build a diet that you want to lose 20, or you want to lose like 50 pounds in 30 days, like go someplace else. Like, right. This is not happening here. And, there's ways to do that. But when it comes to, we talk a lot about metabolic health and, preventing things like insulin resistance and helping people overcome those types of things. It's like, when you can build a lifestyle, you have an opportunity to fight off that chronic disease and do it for the rest of your life. If you can do a program, build that consistency, know what works and what doesn't work for you, then you never need to come back to somebody for it again, because you know what it looks like to be able to sustain it for the rest of your life. So yeah, those are probably the biggest pieces right there.
Man, I'm just like fist pumping all the way down here, man. That's so much truth and wisdom right there, brother. I appreciate you sharing that. Last question. We kind of maybe got into this a little bit, but this one came. What are some gaps in healthcare and education right now that are leaving many people behind and sort of lost? And you alluded to earlier, kind of the sick care. I mean, dude, we're coming up on, this is just a terrifying stat. 66% of adults in the US are considered obese or overweight. That means 2 out of 3 people, and I see it when I travel. I mean, you walk down an airport and you see people drinking, Pepsi and eating a hot dog at 9 a.m. and you're like, what is going on here? And it's people are having a hard time. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. What do you think is the biggest reason for that? And what are those gaps that you kind of see, and how can we plug those, I guess? And that's a loaded question, but
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a bunch there. First, I would say it has to do with just the cheap dopamine effect of food. We've created these foods that taste good, that create massive blood sugar spikes, bottom us out, and leave us chasing it all over again. And it's just like come ride down the roller coaster, get hit again, ride down the roller coaster. And it's like, I mean, that's 85-90% of what, I can't even call it food. The stuff in the grocery store is
processed,
it's just
poison.
Yeah, it's just highly processed things. And even from the standpoint of things that, there are things that are put out there as being healthy, and in general, they are healthy, but I mean, I talk about insulin resistance a lot, but I think that's huge, is like understanding how we can regulate blood sugar effectively so we have more energy throughout the day. So we're not dependent on 6 cups of coffee and, that afternoon donuts and things along those lines, because it's just that roller coaster effect compounds inflammation, leads to brain fog, leads to increase, even things like arthritis, you can tie back to insulin resistance and just that chronic inflammation that we have in our body. So I think that's part of it, is just getting people to get their blood sugar levels in a consistent basis, because it's not that everybody's diabetic, but there's a lot of people that are like insulin resistant, that their blood work looks fantastic because of what we're eating. It's just up and down, and the body's extremely resistant to those things until something breaks. And then when it breaks, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm pre-diabetic. How did that happen? It's like, well, the last 20 years is how that happened, So those are the lifestyle things that we try to talk about. So that's part of it. The food's garbage, no question. But I think that going back to what we talked about earlier too, on the preventative side, there is no preventative care. There's no nutritional education, built into things like school. Just like lifestyle habits that we've created for ourselves. There's so much mental illness among kids, among adults, just because of our current lifestyles, that it makes our food choices not a priority, and we don't really reflect on those types of things. When we don't have strong mental health, we don't have strong physical health, and the vice versa. We don't have strong physical health, we create poor mental health, and then we just stay in the same position we have been for a extended number of years. And then the rabbit hole side of it is, of course, like everything is about making people consumers. You look at all facets of life, it's all about how do we sell something to somebody. And when you kind of realize that, you can look at things through a different lens, so to speak, of like, I'm being told this is what's healthy. I'm being told this is the next big thing in health and fitness. And even like you mentioned earlier, in terms of the next big house, the next big car, all of that is created out of this, consumer society that we've created. And so just being able to make the necessary changes and step back from that and say, this is what society wants me to do, I should probably be running the other direction. And if I'm running the other direction, my life usually gets better.
So true, man. That's so true. See what the mainstream is doing and literally do opposite, man. I wish I knew you about 8 years ago, Chris, because I was hearing you talk about that, I was literally just laughing inside. I literally, man, and I consider myself a healthy guy. I would wake up, I'd eat 2 bowls of Lucky Charms in the morning, 2 bowls. And then I couldn't figure out why at 10 a.m. I was having this crash. So I'd go to Starbucks, I get a caramel frappuccino, which is like 800 calories. And I couldn't realize why I was having like a 1 o'clock crash. So I'd go get another caramel frappuccino. And I couldn't realize why I was having a 4 o'clock crash. And so I'd eat some snacks in the break room, cookies, donuts, whatever. That'd get me through the day. Then I'd get home and I couldn't realize why I was cranky and low energy for my family and all. And dude, following, it was Cynthia Thurlow on Twitter about 3 years ago, I realized, what am I doing? It says heart healthy. I thought it was heart healthy, and it wasn't until I started really reading about this stuff and cereal and what the sugar spikes do to you. And like, when you pictured that roller coaster, that I'm giggling inside, because I'm like, dude, I lived that for years of just like, I couldn't figure it out. Right. And I think people need to bring more knowledge and more expertise, what you're doing, into that, because I think, man, I consider myself a pretty healthy guy. I just didn't know, it said heart healthy on the box. Everybody eats cereal. That should be just a normal thing. Well, now, man, it's a shake or eggs in the morning. And I mean, I have none of that up and down. It's a very level thing. And it's changed my life, man. But a lot of people don't know that. Well, the cereal says heart healthy. It says it has whole grains, like,
Yeah.
they just think it's good for you, man. And it's wild. And I love how you said kind of see what mainstream's doing and kind of go the other way, man.
Yeah. And I think, just being able to try, going back to what we said earlier too, it's like, just try new things. If what you're doing right now is not working, and you can go and try eggs or try Greek yogurt. That's my go-to in the morning is Greek yogurt.
I love Greek yogurt, man.
A little bit of fruit, some Greek yogurt, and just, and it simplifies things. The more simple life can be when it comes to nutrition, the easier it is to sustain. And as guys, we tend to we don't overanalyze the things we're eating. We just want to make sure it makes us feel good. So it's easy to convince guys in a lot of cases that, like, if this works for you for breakfast, then eat it every day. For some reason, we live in this sophisticated world where we've got to eat something new every single meal of the day because, that's something that we've earned for some reason or whatever. But it's just like, it's not necessary, and I don't believe that that's how our bodies are designed to function. And so just, simplification with life and with nutrition. And generally that brings just a lot more energy and a lot more joy to your life.
You're going to be proud of me on this one, Chris. For the last over 4 years now, I've literally eaten the same lunch every day. I meal prep it every Sunday. It's grilled chicken thighs. I season it a little different. I put 2 veggies in there. That's what I eat for lunch 7 days a week. I don't think about it. It's already done. It's just, it's ready to go. It's like literally about 5 years. I used to get made fun of when I was at the corporate all the time. Oh, you're eating this again. Isn't that boring? I'm like, dude, it's fuel. That's all it is for me. It's fuel. I'm fueling myself with healthy things. That's it. I agree with you, man. Just find some things you like and be consistent with those things. Right.
Yeah. And boring doesn't have to be, it can be tasty, boring can still be good. Yeah.
It's 4 years later. I love every day. I look forward to eating it. It tastes good, man. So, who doesn't like grilled chicken thighs, right? It's good stuff. Man, well, I appreciate you coming on, taking some time out of your day and to come on, man. I want to end by kind of highlighting again what you're doing and what you're building, and maybe let us know, hey, here's where I see this vision going in the next 6 months, 1 year, and then how people can reach out to you. And again, I'm going to link everything Chris does below. I'm going to link his website, link his Twitter. If you're not following this man on Twitter, you had a thread a couple days ago that blew. You must have had millions of impressions on that one, man. It took off, but you put out a lot of gold on there. If anybody just follows you, I mean, they're going to gain knowledge for free, I think. And so I'd tell everyone to follow you, but how can people reach out? What do you got going on here in the next 6 months, a year, man?
Yeah, it's I'll be honest, everything's come very quickly. So we're definitely still, figuring things out as we go. But follow me online. That's on Twitter. That's the major platform I'm on right now. Feel free to DM me too if you have specific questions on things. But my brother Brett and I are working with guys one-on-one right now, and really just building healthy lifestyles, helping guys just to reframe what their day looks like, give them something that's sustainable that they can take with them, moving forward. So if you're looking to make a change, looking to just get out of the rat race and build a healthy lifestyle, shoot me a DM. And then from there, I'm also doing some Ironman coaching as well. So if you're looking to take on a major challenge, even if it's just getting started in the sport and you're just trying to figure out, where to begin, building some programs, doing some one-on-one coaching there as well. And just helping a lot of guys to build that limitless mindset, so to speak. And then finally, Brett and I also run some men's groups, we hit on a number of different topics, but all different things that help just empower guys, fitness, nutrition, finances, relationships, just being able to just have conversations with like-minded men. I think that's critical. When you put, even if they come into the group strangers, it's just amazing. And I'm sure you experience this as well, as when they're in the right framework mentally and they're willing to make a change, strangers can have some really powerful conversations very quickly and build some amazing relationships, because they don't necessarily have that at home. So if you're kind of in that position, looking to get out of the isolation, know you need to make a change, but don't really know where to start, reach out. You can DM, check out our website. It's got a lot of information as far as what our programs look like, as far as the breakdown on it. We've got a questionnaire on there as well. Feel free to fill out, and we can have a conversation, just get on the phone and kind of unpack what you're looking to accomplish.
I love that, man. And I feel like, yeah, so many men need that community, you know, and I feel like that's the cool thing about the internet where we can broadcast out is like, there's probably 2 billion potential clients that, you know, you can help. And so I'm praying today, man, that somebody that's watching this just says, hey, you know what, I need to take that next step. And I would encourage you guys, if you need to take that next step, reach out to my man, Chris here. I hope you've gained some wisdom like I have today. I've really appreciated getting to know you more, brother. I hope you'll come, maybe we get you and your brother to come back on here in a little bit of time. And when you've even built out more what you're doing and highlight both of you guys again, man, because I really appreciate it, man. I feel like everything you're saying, I'm literally fist pumping here under the desk. And I just appreciate everything you're about, man, and all the good you put into the world, help people. I appreciate your mindset, learning from you. And I just think you're a great dude, man. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, Tyler, man, I appreciate the invite, man. This has been fantastic. And as I mentioned at the start, you know, you've been very influential in helping me to, you know, get to this point and just pushing me to step out of my comfort zone over the last year. So appreciate you and everything that you continue to shine on this world.
I appreciate that, brother. Well, let's go change the world, everybody. Be kind to yourself, be kind to other people. Let's go bless everybody we come in contact with today. Be positive, go push yourself. Do something hard, maybe take that leap. Maybe that's the one hard thing you need to do today, and reach out to my man, Chris, here in the DMs. Again, we're going to link his site, his Twitter below. Give him a follow, give him a shout out. I appreciate you coming on, brother. Again, this has been episode number 63, Tyrompers No Limit podcast. Appreciate you guys. Much love. Go have the greatest day of your life.